Hello, 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 hello. This is Truth Be Told podcast. I'm your host, Britt. Y'all, today we got a good one. This is episode number 96 with Jillian Newton of the host of the Unlicensed podcast. How are you doing today, boo boo?
I'm good. I am good. I haven't been on someone else's podcast in I think a year or so. So we're getting back into it. But I'm so excited. I was so happy when you messaged me and emailed me, especially with everything we're talking about today. So this Sunday, honestly.
Yes, this is awesome. I think, it's Sunday, it's the beginning of a new week. It's Women's Month.
Hmm.
Yesterday was International Women's International Month Women's International Day. So it's just a good topic, just to enlighten somebody, get somebody some inspiration, some motivation. And then we want to know a little bit about you too, because we love our guests on Truth Be Told podcast. If you are new to this channel, guys, please go like, share, and subscribe. We definitely talk about mental health, healing the inner child, and just real life conversations. So Jillian, let us know a little bit more about you, boo boo.
Yes. Yeah, like you mentioned, I am the host of Unlicensed. It's a podcast for women where they write anonymously, and then I only interview different female guests each week with the center on mental health. That's why I was really excited that you had me here today. I'm a psychology major. I'm very passionate about mental health just based on some of my own personal struggles with anxiety, depression. So I knew after graduating from college, especially with COVID, and I think everybody struggling, especially during 2020, that I
Right.
wanted to create a space for people to be able to vent and have these open conversations. Because I think a lot of the time, especially women, they feel like they're going through a lot of these different things alone, and creating spaces, something like you're doing to allow them to see that this is not something that they're going through alone, and that there's other people that can relate to these things that they're going through, if that's something which seems surface level to someone, to something as serious as these heavier mental health issues. I'm really passionate about creating spaces all around that.
No, I love it. I love everything you're about, especially your page on Instagram. I'm definitely gonna make sure you let us know where we can find you at on social media. I might as well go ahead and ask you that now. Where can we find you at on social media?
You're awesome. You're already letting me do this. I love it. Yeah, y'all can find me on Instagram or TikTok at unlicensed underscore advice. And then I also have a YouTube channel, which you can find through my Instagram page, just unlicensed on YouTube too. So yeah, I have weekly episodes that come out every Wednesday on all streaming platforms. I know some people love Spotify. I know some people hate Spotify. So I'm also podcasts and a few other platforms, Amazon Music, wherever you guys like to listen on, I'm probably going to be on. And yeah, that's what I've been doing for the last few years.
Oh man, that's awesome. I didn't know you was a psychology major. Like that's even more like for me, that's ever since I've started like journaling and like really taking focus and taking control of my life. What makes me happy,
Hmm.
not relying on anybody else or anything else to make me happy, and actually just understanding me. It just made me like look at the world totally different because
Mm.
I was like, wait a minute, it's not a blame game. It's definitely, especially this month, like shout out before we go into the topic. Shout out to all the women. It doesn't matter what color you are, what age you are, how big, how small, what shade, whatever, one hand, two hands, black, white, green, orange, mixed. It's okay. Like all of us bleed the same, and all of us can relate to each other.
Hmm.
We can appreciate each other from different diversities, learning and actually not being ignorant of different people of the world because we all are struggling and not necessarily just getting up struggling, but we all just life be lifing.
Hmm. Life do be lifing. That is true.
So yeah, so I just wanted to say that because, like you said, this was a great topic just to go into and just keep motivating each other. So today we're talking about overcoming perfection. I do want you to let us know a little bit more about unlicensed advice. What made you start going down that path, and then let us know about overcoming perfection.
Yeah, I love that question. So, like I mentioned, I've been doing podcasting in general for almost 5 years. It'll be 5 years in February. I did a podcast before with a friend that we
Awesome.
stopped about probably a year and a half ago. And I knew after that podcast that I definitely wanted to move forward with something that specifically was only interviewing female guests. Number one, because sometimes when you're hearing things from men that don't relate necessarily to anything they'll ever understand, I don't think it hits for a lot of people. And
Mhm.
I also think that women just have this natural ability to be able to empathize and understand things in a way that a lot of men may not be able to. Not saying every man, not generalizing every single person, but I definitely wanted to create these spaces just for women hearing just from women, because we are really going to be able to take that information in, knowing that the women that are speaking about these topics have probably experienced them, and how try to have guests on my podcast firsthand and can really relate to those topics as a woman. So it was really important for me to be able to interview only female guests for that reason too. I
Mhm.
love podcasting. It's also just obviously a wonderful creative outlet. But I knew, again, because of my own mental health issues and in college, just feeling so alone. If that was something small happening with my family, if that was my anxiety about a class, if that was maybe getting in a fight with a friend, I didn't know how to confront it. And I felt like I was so shut off about talking about these things and so shut off from embracing the different negative, because emotions are beautiful in so many ways, but those uncomfortable emotions that you had. I
Right.
went probably 4 years of college into post grad. And when I look back on it, most of my life, shutting down and holding all of these things in. And when I started therapy back in 2022 and realized how healthy it is and scary in all the best ways possible too, to
Mhm.
not hold those things, allow people to see those different sides of you that are not just the bubbly, fun, happy go lucky. I'm, sharing all the wonderful things about myself and being vulnerable and not feeling like a burden every time that you are opening up to someone. I realized how much power there was in that. I think for so long I felt like you were weak in a sense for sharing those emotions and crying and sharing those uncomfortable things that you may not like about yourself, or hard things that you're going through in front of other people. And then as soon as I started doing it, I'm like, this is actually one of the most powerful and one of the most difficult things to do, is letting people in that,
Right.
create a space where women felt like they could do that more naturally. And the anonymous component of it, them writing it anonymously, still allows them to have that level set of slowly opening up without, hey, this is me, this is
Mhm.
whatever, Jillian from San Francisco. Jillian from San Francisco can slowly start to open up about herself, and that allows her to begin to have those conversations with their family and their friends and someone me as a so. That's a little bit about why I wanted to get started and kind of the elements behind it all too.
No, I love it. I love how passionate you are about it. You can see it in your face. I was following your page on Instagram, Unlicensed Advice, and I love the title for one.
Thank
I'm
you.
ask you, what made you come up with that title?
You know what's so crazy? I remember the exact moment I came up with it, because I was working at a theater when I started unlicensed. And I've talked about this in some of my episodes, but it was one of the worst experiences I have ever had. I was stressed out of my mind, underpaid, really was dealing with the like crying every single day, just
Right.
truly, truly unhappy. And so I knew during that year, because I had a lot of free time, honestly, outside of some of the parts of my job that were very stressful, I was like, I need to create, something creative. And, the podcast kind of came to life. I was on FaceTime with my friend, and I mentioned to her, it started off with my first season, actually, just me giving advice. And then
Right.
it felt almost like imposter syndrome or almost fraud like, honestly, to me, because I was talking about some of these things that I'd experienced, but I feel like people were writing in about these other things that I necessarily wasn't talk about, because I don't know how to give advice on these things. I'm not a trained professional. I've never gone through that dating experience. I don't know about spiritual things. So that's why moving into my season through four, I turned it into more of an interview based process, because I wanted to allow people to vent and get advice from people that actually knew what the fuck they were talking about. Because I didn't know what
Right.
I had no idea. So I remember saying in that first season, though, I'm someone who I have my psychology background, but I'm not a licensed therapist. I'm not a licensed counselor. So for really that first season came from me just being this person who wanted to understand what these people were going through more and offering advice. But again, I have my BA in psychology. I'm giving general advice. So that's kind of how the name was born. I'm unlicensed, and now it's kind of cool because I'm interviewing these guests and still giving advice in some senses, but now I have these licensed and trained professionals also on the podcast. But also just sometimes I have friends, family, people that are still in those realms of understanding what these women are going through, but they're not licensed either. So that's how the name came to be
No,
born.
I love it. The reason I asked is because I did watch one of your previous
Hmm.
episodes, so I know that you did explain it, and I felt like the audience needed to know that you can still get advice whether you are licensed or unlicensed, because we all are on the same type of journey about life. It's just
Yeah.
in different forms, different ways. We all are in different um realms, just depending on what you are looking at and where you are in life.
Hmm.
So I thought that was just unique. I think it's an edgy name and I love it. You're so full of life. It shows in your face that you take care of yourself. I mean, we all have hard days, but you know, like you can look at somebody and say, okay, like, wow, like she's really like preaching and walking and doing and giving that unlicensed advice. She's showing and walking it. So we appreciate you for having that space and just allowing women to vent and just let our hair down. Like you said,
Mm.
like sometimes we just, we suffer in silence so much
Mm.
sometimes.
Yeah.
And sometimes we really just are not having a good day. And if we're not having a good day and we want to be a bitch about it, or we just want to be in silence, let us be, you know?
Yes. Yes. Let us do that, please. Please.
Yes, yes. So I love it. Like you said, everything is just flowing. So as we go into the topic about overcoming perfection, when you think of that word or that topic, what does that mean to you?
Yeah. It's so funny because I was doing some research about just perfectionism and where it stems from and how that's looked in my life too. And I think it always comes down to someone having unrealistic goals from themselves in some sense, and they're not really allowing themselves to have grace throughout that process. I was reading this article and it said people who have more of this perfectionistic mindset are more worried about not necessarily making things perfect, but are worried about failure. So there's so
Right.
many things that come from that when you're so nervous about failing. They mentioned, you may procrastinate more. You may not even get your idea out there in the first place because you're worried about it not taking off, or you're worried about people judging it. And the thing is with anything in life, if that's making a new friend, a relationship, starting a new job, there's always the opportunity of failure. That's a
Right.
part of life. I think failure is obviously awful when you're going through it, but when you look back on times where something failed and a beautiful new idea was born, or you fail out of a relationship, someone breaks out with you, and then you look back and you're like, that man was shit. I'm really glad we didn't end up together. So I think with this perfectionistic mindset, people are so worried about that failure that they don't even allow themselves to try or get out there in the first place, if that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. I think where we are right now is 2025. We always talk about social media, but it does
Mhm.
play a big role, especially when you think about, I know for me, when I was growing up, social media wasn't that big. It was, okay, yeah, we had Facebook, we had MySpace. Now, MySpace was jumping, like that was something like back in the day, like everybody loved MySpace,
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
but it wasn't so to the point to where it's just the image.
Mhm.
Wanting to be like the Joneses, quote quote.
Yeah.
Everybody's happy, like you said, bubbly. Life is just, oh, so peaceful, so lovely every day, and it's really not. It's really not. And I was one of those girls. I'm gonna be honest with you, Jillian. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, I was a fairy tale girl.
Mm.
I really thought that life was peaches and cream, bubbly. I don't know what my mom and daddy was doing to me. I tell them it's the Disney movies. I promise,
Uh-huh.
because you put a Disney movie on me for now, I would still go into like a little fantasy. I'm like a little girl all over
Mm.
again. We took the kids to Disney World a couple years ago, and I felt like a kid again. Like I'm ready to go
Aw.
back. Like
Yeah. I was gonna ask, do you still deal with that? Do you still have that mindset even in your adulthood, or do you feel like that's kind of vanished over time as you've gotten older
No.
and seen how the world can be not as fairy tale like in some ways too?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. I think both,
Mm,
because I still want the fairy tale. Like in my mind, like I still like I'm married, I have the kids. You know, what's your fairy tale? That was my fairy tale, to have that
mm,
white picket fence.
mm,
And but then what I learned was, and I've been with this man forever. You know, we fight, we argue, and we'll fight about something stupid, but the stuff that we fight about is be like something to where it's like, okay, gosh, like why are we fighting about this? Like we could
mm,
really talk about this, you
mm-hmm.
know? And then you be like, dang, life ain't really like a fairy tale like you think it is. Like
Right.
anything you do, you have to put in the work. You have to, if you want to be happy, you gotta be, that's a choice, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And that's what I'm learning. And I'm learning not to depend on anybody, especially my husband, because I'm so close to him, you know, not to depend on him for my happiness, if that makes sense.
Mm,
You
mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
because like I said, this is Women's Month, and I feel like I need an identity outside of him too. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I have to go out. I have to, and I don't mean go out outside, but if that's what I wanted to do, that's what I wanted to do. But I mean, just have it. And I tell him this too. You have to have your time too, you
Mm-hmm.
know, because overcoming perfection, it gives you a place to just be yourself, just be able to, like you said, don't have any type of labels on you, be whoever you present that day, whether it's the Britney that shows up all peacefully and bubbly, or where it's that bitchy Britney that's coming through. I mean, anybody who knows me, Jillian, they know I got about 20 sides of me. I'm a Gemini, and I
She
don't
said
leave.
Gemini season and I got everything.
I don't leave by Gemini. I'm really like, into God. I be
Hmm.
like, it's funny. Okay, so I moved to Houston, right?
Hmm.
And I've been in Houston for probably about 3 years
Okay.
almost. And I'm from North Carolina. So this is like a whole different atmosphere. I love Houston. I love like how it pushes me. Me and my husband has grown closer. It's just I love like the different diversity that's here.
Hmm.
And what I'm learning is that just to be where I'm supposed to be. Like, if this is where God has me right now, that's okay. And it's okay. I moved here, I joined in a church. I got in a community, like a community based women, like Christian women, just to be around like minded women.
Mm.
And what that just showed me, Jillian, was just like the topic today, what we're talking about, and how I can be myself and I don't have to like fake the funk. I can still be crazy Britney and
Yep.
still be bubbly Britney, and it be okay. So I
Hmm.
know I was rambling, but I'm sorry. I just had to get that out.
No, I love that. I think it's important that you're showing all sides of yourself. It's so easy as women because we're naturally nurturing and trying to take care of everybody
Hmm.
other than ourselves, and we're conditioned to appear as perfect human beings that don't have a bad day. We're gonna have a bad day. That might be
Right.
mental health problems. That might be your tires going out. I don't know anything about cars, so that's why I
Right.
just never think about cars. I don't know what's going on with cars, but I think it's beautiful that you know that you have these different sides to you. You're going to have different emotions coming up each day that you're not afraid to hide. So many
Hmm.
days I can think of where I was going through some shit, and it was just
Hmm.
easy for me to still present bubbly and fun and I'm okay. I'm not okay. And so many women are not okay. And the fact that you do that and show up in that way is authentic to you because it, again, your actions are still aligned with your values. Your values are to show up authentically as yourself, and you're not going to show up into these spaces and pretend you're not in a good headspace if you're not. So I really value that. I really love that you do that.
No, thank you. Thank you. And it's crazy that you said that, because I was going to ask you, like, what are some struggles that you deal with that you could share, like, that helps you cope with overcoming perfection, or just not even just that, just day to day life, dealing with the stigma of you have to present yourself in a certain way. You have to show up on camera perfect. You have to have the right angle. You have to have a million followers. Like,
Mm.
just can you elaborate a little bit more on that for me?
Yeah. I think someone who still struggles with my mental health issues, and I love what you said earlier about like me showing up, but there's days that I'm not even showing up in a way that I wish I could be, and I try to be
Mhm.
open about that. But if that is one of my goals this year for myself is like going to the gym a few times a week, being consistent within therapy, and if I'm ever having a depressive episode, not sitting in my room all day watching keeping up with the Kardashians and like going out in the sun and doing it. And there's some days that I don't do those things that I wish I could. I think I need to
Right.
give myself grace in sometimes because a part of my perfectionistic mindset is and a big part of perfectionism is so many people are so hard on themselves, and that's where a lot of that negative self-talk comes out, and that's where a lot of that guilt comes out if you say you're going to do something and then you don't. I think it's important to do something that you say you're going to do, but if there's a day that you can't get to it, or mentally if you need a rest day instead of getting to that podcast episode that you need to edit, or picking up your kids from work that day and call someone to pick them up, whatever that looks like, giving yourself grace within that too. I can definitely do a better job of showing up for myself. I think specifically when it comes to mental health in a lot of ways, checking in with myself more, being vulnerable with people when I'm going through these things. And again, not presenting this mask of everything's good when I'm going through that. I think I 100% know that I have been able to grow from that since college and high school where I just kept everything in, but there's still way more growth from within that too.
Yes. Well, shout out to you for even being aware of where you at and what you need to work on, or not even just need to work on, just you know who you are.
Mhm.
And you know that, like you said, some days you can show up. I'm the same way. I get on here and I preach. I mean, as far as like my morning regimen, I'm really big on that, and
Mhm.
it gets me. I wake up in the morning and I'm praying and I'm meditating and I'm on a prayer line with my women. And when I
Yep.
don't do it, I can tell. I'm like, okay, let me jump back on here. But some days, no, I don't feel like hearing that. I'm tired. It's 5 something in the morning. It's 6 where y'all at. Like, I don't, y'all loud. Like, I'm being real. Like,
You said it's too early in the morning for this right now.
yeah, it's too early in
Uh,
the morning, and then it's like, gosh, and then even like with me and my husband, like just sometimes when I spaz on him, I'm like, he'll look at me like, where is this coming from? Like, I don't
mm,
know, but today is just one of them days, so I just need y'all to just everybody just leave me alone. Um,
yeah.
so yeah, I love everything you're sharing, especially about the topic we're talking about, overcoming perfection and just being who you are at that moment.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, I think that's important. As you have grown, is there anything that you would like to share to the audience? Any tools, any techniques, just about mental health? Since you do have this background, I love that you're in this background. Like, I'd be so intrigued, like I'm a kid in the candy store, because I always tell my
Yeah.
husband, like, it's so intriguing to learn about us. That's why I'm always reading these different type of books and learning different mental mindset, and a
Mhm.
growth
Mhm.
mindset versus a fixed mindset, and just knowing where I'm at, because if I didn't, I wouldn't understand why she acting the way she acting you know
Mhm. No,
but
I
no.
get that.
What are
I
some
get
steps?
that.
I'm sorry.
No, no, I totally get it because I have those days too. My first thing, I think a lot of people would say, stay as present as you can. With perfectionism specifically, you are always worried about that failure component, which you don't even know if you're going to fail until that project's out there. I will say, for someone who has anxiety myself, I'm always thinking 20 days
Right.
ahead, 20 years
Me
ahead.
too.
I'm nowhere close to
Bad.
getting married. I have my whole wedding planned out with my future husband and everything. Like, we need to relax and we need to stay present. Something that I've done in therapy before, because my therapist knows that I'm someone that tries to stay present, but I might struggle with it sometimes. You can always do the five senses type related things. So five things that you see right now, five things that you smell, five things that you hear. That kind of just keeps you very grounded, and I think it's really important to stay present. If you ever find yourself just spiraling and you can't even get to that point, something that I've done with my therapist is play the what if game.
Okay.
So what if you start your own YouTube channel and you put out an episode and you get a dislike? Then what happens? Okay, then maybe you get a few more dislikes. Then what happens? And you kind of just go down this realm of getting to what might be the worst possible scenario and kind of realizing in the moment that the worst thing that you believe can happen probably is not going to happen. It's
Right.
probably not going to happen. So that's something that I like to do, because you'll go down this rabbit hole of, I put out this video, people don't like it, I'm getting canceled. Really, is that probably going to happen? And obviously there's more steps to that, but that's something that I like to do now, of these things that I'm so afraid of happening in terms of failure or whatever that looks like, especially in terms of my creative projects. It's
Love
probably not
it.
going to happen. And then also, you mentioned it already perfectly, that comparison mindset. It is
Mhm.
easy to be on scrolling through TikTok and social
Mhm.
media, and you're already seeing someone that's doing exactly what you want to do in life. So if that is a beautiful family, your dream job, moving across the country, moving out of the country, whatever that looks like for you. And I think I saw this video earlier today. A lot of people see that and then they immediately think, oh man, I'm way too late for that. I'm way too late for that thing. You can still get that thing. You can still go
Yes.
for those things. You can still have that dream wedding. You can still have those things. Just realizing that your timeline one is probably different from that person. But I always say, if there's something that's in your heart, on your mind, that sticks with you for so long, and you just have this intuitive feeling that this is meant for me, I know this is going to happen one day for me, it probably is. You just got to give yourself grace and time, that your timeline might be different than someone else's. And if you find yourself just really comparing yourself to someone else,
Mhm.
need to take accountability of what's going to work best for you in that moment. Do you need to take off Instagram for a week? I'm not saying you need to erase it forever, but do you need to take off Instagram for a week? Do you need to set up an extra therapy appointment with your therapist that week if you notice that you're kind of spiraling when you're seeing all your friends on social media and all of those things too? So that's something that I would say, comparison and saying not to compare yourself is way easier said than done, obviously, but taking little steps just to limit maybe those interactions that you're seeing on the day-to-day basis. Or if you want to continue to be on social media or whatever way that that looks like, remembering that your timeline is going to be different than someone else's too.
I love it. I love everything that you have said. Like, really, like, thank you so much for just giving all this advice. And even just the steps that people can take to overcome perfection. Definitely being in the present moment, giving yourself grace, me and you, all of us women,
Hmm.
please give yourself grace, guys. We have so many hats. Whether you're a single mom, whether you're not a mom, whether you're a dog mom, cat mom, just taking care of you in general. You know, you have to take care of yourself. And so, whatever that is for you, I just want to thank you for letting these ladies know that it's okay to be unperfectly you.
Hmm. Hmm. I love that. Exactly you. Exactly. Because no one's going to understand anything that you're going through 100%. You could go through
Mhm.
the same exact situation as someone else, but they had different, they have different mental health struggles. They have a kid that
Right,
affects the way that they would look at that thing. So you're going to
right.
understand yourself more than anybody else in this entire world. So while you're at it, give yourself, hold yourself accountable. I'm not saying you should go off a deep end and start crazy things and be like, oh, I'm just me. No, hold yourself accountable, show up in good ways to other people, treat other people well, but give yourself some grace in that, because you're going to be your own
Yes.
best friend in that always.
I
Always.
love it. Now I have one other question for you before I
Yeah.
let you go, Jillian. I do want to know if there was something that you could say to 14-year-old Jillian today, what would it be?
Oh, I love that question. All the that's such a good question. Honestly, something that I had a breakdown about last year with a friend is like being kinder to myself, being kinder to myself and how I speak to myself. If I make a mistake, my friend always says, don't say like if you forget something, don't be like, I'm so stupid. Be like, I forgot that, but I also remembered it that I needed to grab that thing or right before I left for the house, whatever that looks like. Being kinder to myself is something that I'm definitely working on this year. And I think 14 is when I began to just have all those insecurities, end of middle school, going into high school. I
Right.
always joke that like 6 year old, 7 year old me was so confident. I just didn't really care what other people thought of me in a lot of ways. And
Right.
then it just seemed to switch. So again, moving back into like that authentic question that you have, allowing my core values and that I was raised on to continue to have be shown through my actions. That definitely
I
would be
love
my
it.
thing.
I love it. I love it. Okay. Well, this was awesome. Thank you so much.
Of
I do
course.
I do appreciate just talking to you. I love everything that you said about the topic. We definitely gonna sign out today, guys. Definitely check out Jillian Newton on Unlicensed Podcast. You can find her on all social media platforms, guys. We are signing out with episode number 96, Overcoming Perfection. You guys have a lovely evening. Thank you, Jillian.
Thank you.